We have some very interesting news in relation to Microsoft and how they possibly are planning on compensating creators, people around the internet, for anything they've created that's been used in their training data sets. Now, a lot of this is coming from some recent job listings they've been posting. This is kind of one of my favorite ways of getting like an inside scoop on some of these AI companies and kind of like what they're building is you literally can see the job listings they're posting, and you can tell what direction they're trying to move their company towards in the future. Now, do all the projects that people are that are posted on their LinkedIn jobs form, do all of them actually make it to a final stage and something happens? No, but it gives you a really good idea 6 months, a year, sometimes 2 years in advance, and kind of what's coming down the pipe. So that's kind of a pro tip for anyone looking at to do some AI tech internet sleuthing. All right, let's get into what Microsoft has announced here. So, of course, no official announcements, but they did post a job over on LinkedIn, which was titled Research Intern Training Time Province Data Dignity. And then essentially inside of this, they're breaking down what is going to be here. And when you hear intern, by the way, just in case you're like, oh man, they're just hiring an intern, they're not taking this, seriously, they're looking for a PhD student. So that's a requirement on this. It's going to be someone currently enrolled in a PhD program in computer science or a related STEM field. They have to have, I believe master's programs. They would like them to be like also enrolled in that. And they need at least a couple years of research experience, including peer-reviewed publications. So they're looking for someone serious. This isn't just like a high school or, a college intern or something like that. Just getting that out of the way. So according to this listing that they have posted, what this researcher is going to need to be able to do is essentially to attempt to show that their AI model can be trained. And they essentially would like to, when an AI model is creating photos or text or anything else, they want the outputs to essentially be able to estimate what percentage of this output came from a photo or text or something inside of the actual training data set. They say efficiently and usefully estimated. So that's kind of what the goal is like, can you efficiently and usefully estimate what percentage of this input in our data set turned into this output that the AI model made? Very interesting. They also said in it, current neural network architectures are opaque in terms of providing sources for their generations, and there are good reasons to change this. One is incentives, recognition, and potential pay for people who contribute certain value data to unforeseen kinds of models. We will want in the future, assuming the future will surprise us fundamentally. Okay, a couple interesting things there. One thing, they're like, there's some good reasons to change this. One of the good reasons is that they're embroiled in a couple lawsuits. So I think we'll just get that one off the table. Of course, incentives, and I believe that might be one that you would call incentives. I do like recognition. That's kind of cool. I think in a lot of the big AI models right now, we're seeing that they're citing their sources, which I think is fantastic. You see, Claude just added web browsing, and they're using Brave for that. And when you do a search, they will cite the sources. They'll cite where they actually got the data from, the websites and stuff. We saw ChatGPT and a number of big players do this, and I think this is super important. Grok, for example, does this. So the recognition is very important because one could make the argument that these AI models are sort of like a web browser or like Google search, and you do the search and now they're kind of giving you all the info and you can click to get more information or fact check it. So yes, recognition is important. Now, the thing that's more interesting to me, and they really try to skirt around this lightly. They don't say pay for people who contribute. They say potentially pay for people who contribute. So they're like, we would just like to see what percentage it is, and then we'll think about the idea vaguely. Now, this is kind of funny to me. They're really trying not to get pinned down on this in any sort of way, but I do think it shows there's the possibility this might be going in an interesting direction. Okay, right now we know that there's so many lawsuits that are coming down in relation to text, code, image, video, song generators. We have AI companies doing all of these. There's a whole bunch of big lawsuits going down against companies in relation to all of this, and essentially all of these are in relation to using all of the using other people's data and publishing things. So we have the New York Times published a really interesting, or Wired, sorry, published a really interesting thing called Every AI Copyright Lawsuit in the US Visualized. And they show who's suing and who's defending. And so you have almost all the major AI companies you could think of are being sued. You have 11 Labs, Perplexity, Cohere, Suno AI, Udio. Suno and Udio are both being sued by UMG, Sony, and Warner for music generation. You, of course, have OpenAI and Microsoft being sued by Center for Investigative Reporting and Daily News. You have NVIDIA being sued by a handful of people. The New York Times is suing Microsoft and OpenAI, and also the Incept is. So like all of these people that are creating these tools are also kind of, or that are working on these programs are being sued. OpenAI is being sued by, like, I think the most people. They're being sued by like everyone. Meta's got a lawsuit, Stability AI, GitHub, which is owned by Microsoft, for their code. So I think that's important. But in any case, a lot of lawsuits going on. And I think Microsoft would like to explain to, someone that they're being sued by, of just what percentage of their data is coming from something. And I can imagine this researcher will go and do all this research, and if it looks really poor, if it reflects really poorly on them, this research has probably never seen the light of day. But if it's like, look, general stuff on the internet makes up like 80% of the responses, and 20% comes from some like really specific data sets that it's easy to track down the owner and pay them, so we're gonna pay that 20%, right? I could see a situation like that where they actually decide that they're maybe wanting to go and pay for this. I think this is interesting. A couple different software development companies have also sued Microsoft, like I mentioned, because of GitHub's Copilot. So there's different areas that are being. I wanted to read one other thing that was written about this. They said, to have been uniquely essential to the creation of the new masterpiece. They would be acknowledged and motivated. They might even get paid. Okay. I like this example they've shared because it's really easy for me to be like, who sued Larry Fink in 2012 over XYZ? Like, you could do something really specific like that a New York Times article, did like some sort of expose or wrote about, right? And so if I just say that, and it's obviously the New York Times, that's a pretty close-cut case. Their example is much different, right? They're like, you want it to generate an animated movie. You want it to be an oil painting style. You want it to be a world of cats on an adventure. And in something like that, especially when they're saying a movie, like, it is calling on so many pieces of training data to do that, right? Voice actors, writers, cat portraits, oil painters. So much goes into that. And so it's really hard if it spits out like a video for them to be like, okay, it copied the idea of, like Bluey or something from, a kid's animated video. And so Bluey's, the company that creates Bluey should get some sort of revenue. It's like, well, what about the oil painter that it pulled from? And what about the voice actors that it's kind of cloning their voice a little bit? And what about like all the other things? And so then you really kind of have to break it down. So this is a challenging problem. I do think this is interesting. And I do I just think it's funny. They're like, they might even get paid. It's like, if it's not too much money, we might sprinkle a little bit of change in the direction to get the litigators off of our back. Microsoft is not looking for new things to spend money on. I think they're just hoping that they can spin this in a way that they're essentially not going to get it's funny, I think TechCrunch said that they're ethics washing this because there's a bunch of regulatory court decisions and they don't want it to disrupt their AI business. So, makes sense. What is, I guess, the precedent, you might ask, for paying people or paying people essentially for their AI works? There's a couple key players that are doing this that I am impressed with. One of them is Adobe. There's not a lot of details about this. Not a lot of people are talking about it, but with their image generation platforms, Shutterstock is also doing this, and they essentially are kind of quote unquote programmatically compensating data owners. So if I generate an image with Adobe, I believe it's Firefly or Shutterstock, whoever originally created the photos that are used in my generation are going to get compensated. Now, the way Adobe's works, though, if I'm being 100% honest, is not as is not as programmatic or not as fancy as you might think. I think Microsoft and a lot of these other players are trying to find an actual programmatic way to do this. The way Adobe did it is their entire data set of images. They're like, okay, 1 million images opted into our training set. Let's just say, for example, I think it was much more than 1 million, but they're like 1 million opted into our data set. For every image that's generated, everyone just gets like a tiny bit of money for the percentage of the data set you are. So it's an interesting way to go. It's really hard because when you look at something like Spotify, for example, Spotify compensates a creator. If someone listens to their song, they give them a few cents. And that makes a lot of sense because they could track which songs are listened to. But the way Adobe's doing it, because they don't really track what songs or which images are being used to generate another image. I will keep you up to date on how this goes, and more importantly, how the regulatory environment and all of these lawsuits play out. I think this is what a lot of people are watching. Very interesting times right now in AI, and I would love to see more creators getting paid for their work. I do think this is a good precedent and kind of direction for the industry. So let's hope Microsoft does something cool here. I'll definitely keep you up to date if they make any announcements. It's interesting to see this is the direction they're going. If you enjoyed the episode today and you learned anything new, we would absolutely love a review. And if you've ever wanted to grow and scale your business using AI tools, or to grow and scale your career using AI tools, I have a community called AI Hustle where every single week I record a video. I've been doing this for over a year. So I have over 50 videos created where I do a deep dive on all of the different AI tools, all of the different ways I'm making money with AI tools, all of the different growth hacks I'm using to grow and scale my companies, local companies, software companies, a lot of variety in there. I'm using AI tools. So there's over 300 members in the community and everyone shares their inputs. There's people that have started $100 million companies in there and people just getting started. So you get a really wide range of perspectives. That's what I love about it. There's a link in the description. In the past, I had this set at $100 a month, but there's currently a discount to $19. So if you've ever wanted to join, this would be a great time when I raise the price in the future. You'll be locked in at that $19 a month and it will never be raised on you. Would love to have you in the community to help you grow and scale your career or your business using AI tools. Links in the description, and I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day.